What we're going to do is look at domain and range. Domain is talking about our x values, and range is going to be talking about our y values. We're going to be looking at two different types of problems. We're going to be looking at discrete problems where we have the specific numbers, and we're going to look at continuous problems where we're looking at a graph. Now, when we're looking at discrete values, what we're doing is we're looking at specific ordered pairs in the example of 1a. Now, these are a little bit easier because the domain are our x values. So we just see each of our x values right there. And so that tells us that our domain would be 3, 6, and 5. I like to put my numbers in numerical order. So I'm going to put 3, 5, and 6. But 3, 6, and 5 would be fine also. Now for the range, what we're going to do is look at our y values, 4, -1, and 0. Once again, when we're looking at it, what we want to do is we want to put them in numerical order. So -1, 0, and 4. For the next one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look at our domain. And once again, domain is talking about our x values. So we have the 2, the 2, the 2, and the 2. We're just going to put the 2 once. Now for the range, we have 4, 5, 9, and 3. Once again, with the range, I'm going to put it in numerical order. And that right there would be 3, 4, 5, and 9. Now, if we're looking at letter C, this is a mapping diagram. And with a mapping diagram, what it does is it takes the 6 and it tells us it goes to the -1. So 6 is the input, -1 is the output. It's like the ordered pair 6, -1. So when we're looking at our domain are going to be in our first oval. So that right there is going to be the 6 and the 8. Now for the range, what we're going to do is look at our second oval. We have the -1, 2, and 12. Now we're going to look at continuous data. Continuous data is usually described with a graph. When we're looking at our domain, what we're going to do is we're going to look at our x values. So it goes all the way to the left to -3, and it goes all the way to the right to +3. So our domain are our x values such that x is in between -3 and 3. Now, for the range, what we're going to do is we're going to look at our y values. So it goes all the way up to 2, and it goes all the way down to -2. So our range are our y values such that y is in between -2 and 2. Now for the next one, what we have are arrows. This changes things because that means that it's going to the left, and this arrow right here means that it's going to the right. So when we're doing our domain, what we're going to do is we're going to put x such that x is all real numbers. Now, this right here is E, and that stands for element. And then this R right here stands for all real numbers that we talked about in lesson 1.1. So all the numbers that we deal with are real numbers in algebra. So this is saying that this is all the x values. Now for the range, it's a little bit different. We're not going to do YER because it's not covering all the y values. Our lowest value is -1, and it keeps on going up. So that means that y such that y is greater than or equal to -1. Notice that it includes the -1. That's why we have a line underneath it. Now, if we're looking at letter F, when we're looking at our domain, once again, we're talking about our x values. It's starting right here, and it goes to the right. Notice that there's an open circle. That means it does not include the point. So when we're talking about our domain, we're talking about our x values such that x is greater than -2. Notice that we don't put a line underneath because we do not include the number since this is an open circle. Now with the range, what we're doing is we're talking about our y values. And so we're going to put y such that, notice that it's going up. It's starting at 0, so it's going to be y is greater than 0. For letter G, we have another oval. And just for a second, if you feel like you understand it, pause the video, try G, H, and I on your own and see how you do. So with letter G, for the domain, once again, we're talking about our x values. So we're seeing where does it start and stop. And notice that for our domain, our x values, x such that x is in between. And in this case, it's -1 and 1, 2, 3. For the range, what we're doing is we're talking about our y values. So y such that our lowest value is -4 and our highest value is 4. And then for letter H, if we're looking at our domain, notice that it's starting right here. It's going to the right. So we would have x such that x is greater than or equal to -2. And then for our range, it's going up with this arrow. It's going down with that arrow. So that means that when we're looking at this, y such that y, e, r. That means y is an element of all the real numbers. Now for letter I, we don't have arrows. We have an open circle and we have a closed circle. So when we're looking at our domain, notice that with the open circle, we're not going to include the number. So 1, 2, 3. So what we have is x such that x is in between -3. Notice I'm not putting a line underneath it. And then it goes all the way to 2. The 2, I am putting a line underneath because it actually is a closed circle. When I'm looking at my range, I'm talking about my y values. My lowest y value is right here, which is -3. My highest one is 2. So that means that my y values are in between -3 and 2. It includes both of those points, so I have a line underneath both of those points. A common question is, well, what about the open circle? Well, there is an open circle right here, but notice that the line also includes this right here. So when we're talking about our y values, at -1 it's open, but at -1 it's also closed. So at one point it's closed, so we're going to include that as a closed value. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of review from the summer. So adding and subtracting fractions, we've got a couple easy ones where we have a common denominator. And whenever the denominator is the same, we keep it the same. We add the numerator. 1 plus 3 is 4. And that's all we have to do for adding fractions with a common denominator. Now, this next one, they don't have a common denominator. So what I have to do is figure out what 3 and 2 both go into, and that would be 6. So that means that I multiply my first fraction by 2 over 2. 2 times 1 is 2. And my second fraction by 3 over 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Notice that both 2 times 3 gives me 6. 2 times 3 gives me 6. So I have a common denominator. And then I do the same thing that I did on the last one. I add them up, and that gives me 5, 6. Now, subtracting is the same thing. I need a common denominator. So 5 and 3 would be 15. That would be my common denominator. That means I multiply this first fraction by 3 because 5 times 3 is 15. And the second fraction, 3 times 5, would give me 15. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 5 is 10. 12 minus 10 would be 2. Pause the video for a second. See if you could try those next 3 on your own. Okay. So with this right here, our common denominator is the same. So we have the 7. We add it up. 2 plus 4 is 6. For the next one, we need a common denominator. It would be 6. So the first one is going to stay the same, but the second one, we're going to multiply it by 2. So that right there would be a 6 also. 1 times 2 gives me 2. 5 minus 2 gives me 3. So that would be 3 6, but I need to reduce it. So that would reduce to 1/2. Letter F is a little difficult because we have a mixed number. I'm going to do the same thing. What I'm going to do is come up with my common denominator, and my common denominator is 20. Both 4 and 5 go into 20. So I multiply this by 5, and I multiply this by 4. This would be 5. This would be 8. 5 plus 8 is 13 over 20. So it would be 1 and 13 over 20.